Welcome to the second part of contact management system project. So in this session, we are going to do few setups for the Lightning app page, and we'll also go ahead and create a tab in order to display this. And after that, we are going to create the LWC component, and then we will fetch and display the data. Okay, so that is the agenda for this session. So all right, let's just go ahead and first create a Lightning app page the way we have it here. Okay, so you just need to go to your Lightning app builder, click on new. So because I already have this one, I will be creating it with a different name. Okay, so app page, I'll give a similar name. I'll just append something, contact management system. If you already know how to create it, you can skip this part. Okay, or you can just fast forward to the component creation. Okay, so once I give the name, I will be choosing this one region, and then I'll click on done. After that, we are just going to save and activate this. Right, so once I have this, I'll go ahead and create a tab for this. Okay, so in the tab, you have to go to Lightning page tabs. Okay, click on new, and then you have to find out the app page that you have created. Okay, so the app page is this one, the one I just created. I will give the name. This is the API name, I believe. No, it's label, right? So label should be this itself. And here I'll just remove this number, provide one, and I'll just give an icon here. Any random icon would be okay. Let me give this and click on next. And this is done. All right, so now this was saved. I will go ahead and open the Lightning app page that I've just created. Okay, the name was contact management system project 1. So contact this one project. Okay, so this is what I've created. Right now it's blank because we have not done anything yet. Okay, so let's just navigate to VS Code and start with the LWC component. Okay, so you have to go under Force app, you have to find the LWC folder and then create a LWC component by choosing this option, create Lightning web component. Okay, so here I'm going to create the project as contact management demo, and then hit enter. You don't need to change the path here, right? So this is already showing you the correct file path. Click on enter. Okay, so now we have our component created over here, and it is showing you the default files that it has. Okay, HTML, JS, and the meta XML file. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what these files are for. So this template file, which is nothing but the HTML file, is used to display whatever you want to be displayed on the UI, right? Basically, the logic related to HTML and what actually shows up on the UI would be written over here. JS is for your any kind of validation or logic that you want to implement at the client side. And the meta XML file will actually contain the configuration of this component. Configuration as in whether this component is exposed or not, or where and all you actually want to expose this component. Okay, so let's just first expose this component. All right, so you need to turn this flag on. This is exposed flag to true. And after that, you need to also define where and all you want to expose this component. For that, you have to, under targets, you have to define the target. Okay, so target, and I am going to include this on the app page, so I'm just selecting this. But you, based on your requirement, whatever you have created and wherever you plan to include this component, you can define that. Okay, so okay, all right. So before proceeding, let's just deploy this to the org and include this component on the app page that we have created. Okay, so this, let's just refresh this, and the component name was contact management demo. Okay, so if I had not exposed this, right, then I would have not been able to find it here. Okay, but now I have exposed this, so I should be able to find it over here. Contact management demo. This is the one that I just created, and I just need to drag and drop it here. Okay, right now it won't show anything because there is nothing right now. I'll just click on save, and let's just go back and refresh this. Okay, there'll be nothing displayed right now. Now the second thing that we want to do is display the data. Okay, here, display the data. So in order to display the data, you first need to create an Apex class, write a method that should query the data from Salesforce, so that once you have that method ready, you can import that method in your JS file, and you can pass the results of that method to your HTML file so that it can display the results. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started with the Apex class. So I will go to classes, and I'm going to create an Apex class. Okay, demo contact controller. Okay, the file path is fine, and here I'm going ahead and writing a method. Okay, I'm just writing the structure first. I'll give the method name as get contacts. Okay, now the first thing first is, like, if there is any method that you have written, you have to provide that aura enabled annotation, otherwise your LWC component will not be able to import this method. Okay, so I am going to include aura enabled. Okay, and then cacheable is equals to true. I'm not going to explain you what does it mean, and, like, I'm not going very much into detail because I'm expecting you would be knowing at least this much. But if you don't, then you can just search about it, or you can follow other videos. All right, so now we want to fetch the contacts from the Salesforce org, right? And we know that we can do that using a query. So think about it, that when you write a query to fetch the contacts, what that query is going to return you. Basically, you want all the contacts, right, to be returned from the org. So all the contacts would be nothing but list of contacts, correct? So you want this method to return you list of contacts. And that is why your return type is going to be list of contact. Because you're not going to receive just one contact in your query, okay? You're planning to query all the contacts. So that is why the return type would be list of contacts. Now, the second thing that you have to do here is, you can either write the query directly, like write this statement return and then just provide the query inside. So ID, first name, these are the API names of the fields on contact object that I want to fetch. Okay, so first name, last name. I think I also want to display email. I want to display phone. I want to display title. What else did we have? First name, last name, title, phone, and account name. Okay, and we know that account. Okay, let's just keep it as, and the API name of the account lookup on contact is account ID. Okay, so I'm just keeping it just like this for now. Then from contact, and because I have a lot of contacts in my org, so right now I'm just putting, let's say, a limit of 15. Okay, so either you can write the statement directly like this, and if other people are very clear with the concepts of method and everything, then they can again fast forward to a little bit ahead. But the other people who do not understand these steps, I'm going to explain you how you can, let's say, if you would have started, if you plan to write everything line by line in short, then how will you actually start? Now you know that your query is going to return you list of contacts. Okay, so list of contact, basically you will be writing your query like this, right? So just imagine it like this. Okay, let me remove this. So just imagine that you just wrote your query, right? But this query is returning you list of contacts. Okay, now that list of contacts, where are you going to keep it? You need a container, right? and what kind of container it should be. It should be a container of data type list of contact, so that it can hold the result that this query is returning. Okay, that is why we have defined list of contact, and then we are storing the results that we are getting from this query. And once we have this, we could have written something like this: return, and then what, when LWC calls this method, what will it expect? It will expect this method to return list of contacts. And where have you kept your list of contacts? In which container? This is your container, right? So this, you have to return this list. Okay, like this. So you would have, like, if you don't have the knowledge about this, or like, you're just like a beginner, then you would have for sure written it like this, but you can also directly return it like this. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this. So the method is ready now. Okay, I'm going to deploy this class. Now the second step would be to import this method in our JS file. Okay, so let's just go to the LWC component. Okay, and here we are first going to import that method. Okay, so import, and when I'm importing an Apex method, this is the syntax for importing the Apex method. Okay, so for example, after import, I can give any name. Okay, I'm just going to give it as get contacts from @salesforce/apex/class name dot method name. Okay, so this is the class name dot method name. Okay, get contacts. I'm not sure if this is too bright for you guys, but I think this appearance is a little too bright for me, so I'll just go ahead and change it. Sorry for the interruption, but I think this is better. Yeah. All right, so we have imported the contact. Okay, and this is the syntax: import, and then give any name from, and then under single inverted commas, you have to write @salesforce/apex/class name dot method name. Okay, so you have imported the method now. Now you have imported the method, but you still need some means using which you can actually form a connection between whatever you're getting from this method and how you're going to receive that in LWC. Okay, so you can use either wire adapter, wire decorator, or you can also do the same thing using imperative way. Okay, so I'm going to use wire right now. For wire, you first need to import it. Okay, so I'm just going to import the wire property here, and then the syntax for wire is something like this. Okay, so wire, and then once you define the syntax, okay, inside here you need to mention what do you need to wire. Basically, wire is going to bind the data. Okay, as in, like, it will try to access whatever this particular method from this class is returning. Okay, so basically it is trying to wire something from the Apex class. Okay, but what do you want to wire? So this is what you have to wire. Okay, so whatever you have imported, you need to pass it as a parameter over here. Okay, now this is your class. Okay, now this is your call. Sorry, not your class. Okay, this is your call @wire, and then you have mentioned what you need to wire. After that, it is always going to give you some response, right? So for example, if you are let's say here, if somebody is standing with this bucket of apples, and you know who that person is, right? Because you have imported, like, you know the name. Now when you call that person, they are going to turn back, right? So basically you are getting some response, so they are giving you something back. Okay, now there are two ways of receiving that data. Okay, not exactly two ways, but I would say that that particular response can either be positive or it can be negative, which simply means that either you can get the data or you can get an error. Okay, so that response will always consist of two parameters: data and error. Okay, so for now, let's just not try to deconstruct it, but I'm simply going to just define a random property here. Okay, I'll just give any name. So get wired get wired contact. Okay, this is a property that I have defined myself. Okay, so I know that this returned me something. Okay, and whatever it is returning me, I am keeping that here. Okay, in this property. So now I know that and what I said, right? The response that you would be getting from this call, right? That will always consist of two parameters, data and error. Okay, so keep this part in mind. Okay, now let's just move ahead. And now we have the data here. Okay, now we have to go to HTML and we have to initialize the lightning data table. Okay, so here, let me start with lightning data table. There are few parameters that you would have to pass. Key field ID. This is important because it will uniquely identify your each and every row in the table, right? Which you can use to update the records. So key, then data. In data, I'm not keeping anything right now. I'll just keep it like this. And then it also needs columns. Okay, so you have to structure your columns in your JS file, and then you have to call it here. Okay, and right now let's just keep it like this. Okay, now where are we getting the data? So let's just go back to JS, and here I have kept the response. Okay, and the response consists of data and error. So let's just copy this, go back to HTML, and this dot data, right? Because I want to access the data that it is returning. Okay, it has two parameters, data and error. So you need to define, because I have just kept it like this. I have not pulled out data and error separately right here. So for now, if I want to access directly like this, then I have to mention, right, that what from here I want to access. So get wired contact dot data in HTML file. Okay, and then columns. In columns, you have to define the columns. You can either define the column outside the class and then you can reassign here, or you can also define here as well. Okay, so I'm going to define another property as columns, and the structure for columns is like this. Okay, so under this, every column is like, every column structure that you're defining will go, you have to initialize that as an object here. Okay, and this is the syntax for the object. So label. Okay, and in label, for example, what is the first? Let's just create one, and then we'll copy first name, last name, title. So here you just have to give the label. Okay, first name, and then you have to give the field name. Okay, and field name would be the, here you need to give pass the API name. Okay, first name, and put a comma and define all of the columns. Okay, so I'll copy this. Control. So first name, last name, it is title, and the API name for title is just title. The other one is phone. So phone, and then the API name again for phone is phone, and then account name and email. So let's just first keep email here. Okay, or let me just keep account name. And here, how, so there's something that is not going to work with account name, but for now I am going to, like, write it like, simply without doing any kind of modification. But I know what I'm going to write that is not going to display the account name. Okay, but if you apply your logic for now, you know that, like, this is the lookup on contact, right? And you can, from contact, you can access accounts value using account dot name, right? So let's just keep it like this, and I'll go back here, and I'm going to, although this is not going to work. Okay, but I want you to understand why it is not going to work. So that is why let's just include it for now. And the last one would be for email. Okay, so email, and then all right. Okay, so the column is done. The columns is done, and this columns, I need to go back to the HTML and assign the columns. Okay. So let's just go through it again. We created the class, we have written a method, and this method is returning us list of contacts. Okay. And we have exposed this method to Lightning Web Components using our enabled annotation. And we are importing this method in our JS file. After importing the method, we are using wire adapter to wire this method with Apex class. Okay. And then once this call is done, once this line is executed, we will get back something in response, and that response always consists of two parameters, data and error. But right now I'm just simply keeping the response inside this property. Okay, I just defined a random property, and this is going to contain my response, which consists of two parameters, data and error. Now going back to HTML file, here when I defined Lightning data table, in the data property, I have to pass the data. And because I have not deconstructed this in my JS file, I'm writing it as this property dot data, because I know this contains data as well as error. Okay, so this property dot data. Then for columns, I have defined the columns, and this is the structure for columns. This is how you define the columns. Okay, you have to give the label, and this label name you can give anything. Okay, although this is how it is available on the standard object, but let's say if you have a requirement to show it just as like, any other thing, for example, for phone, you want to show it as phone space number, then you can do those modifications with the label name. Okay, you can modify the label however you want using this particular parameter, but in the field name you have to provide the API name. Okay, and also the other thing that you have to keep in mind, whatever column you're defining here, whatever values you're giving here, make sure that you have included those in your SOQL query when you're like, fetching the all the information from the object. Otherwise, you will just not see any data, okay, if you have not fetched it. All right, so we had the columns, we passed the columns to the data table. Okay, so let's just deploy this component to the org. And also I had made a change to the class, so I'm going to deploy the class as well. Okay, let's just go ahead and refresh and see. So this is the one that we have. I'm going to click on inspect and then reload this. All right, so it's not displaying anything, but let's just go ahead and do a console log. Okay, so I'll have my result here, and from the result I'm going to deconstruct it. Okay, so and I know it will have data and error. Okay, and I'm going to deconstruct the result, and here let me define two other properties here. Okay, one of them would be contacts, where I want to fetch everything from data and keep it in the contacts, and I will also take error. Okay, and another thing, I don't have to define everything as @track, right? Because that it was used to make the property as reactive, but now you don't have to actually write @track to make the property reactive. It is going to be reactive anyway. Okay, so contacts and error. So here I have now deconstructed. Okay, so basically I have pulled data and error from the response. Okay, so this is the parameter, right? So I have, so now this structure is generally, it looks like that. Okay, I have defined in, before this it was like a property, but now it is like a function that I'm writing, but I am keeping the response here. Okay, and from the response I'm pulling out data and error. Okay, now I'm going to put this condition that if there is anything in data, okay, then I want to do something, but else if error. Okay, if there's anything inside error, then I want to do something. Okay, now I have defined these two properties. Okay, so in these two properties I am going to, so if there's a value, if there's something inside data, then I want to assign that data into this particular property. So this dot contacts and data. Okay. And in error, if there's anything in error, then I want to this particular property that I defined, right? Inside this error. Okay. And in the error part, there will be nothing for the data, right? Because if there was anything in data, then the execution will be inside this, right? It won't go here. This is if and else if condition. But if your code, if this part is getting executed, that means there was nothing in data. This was not satisfied. That is why it entered here, right? So if entered here, then what does it mean? It means that there's nothing inside this property. Okay, so you can mention it as undefined. All right, and the same thing goes for here, that if you are inside data, if your execution, if it is actually your code has entered here, then that means this condition was not satisfied, but this condition was satisfied. Okay, so here your this dot error would be undefined. I know that I can skip all these things for now, but I think this is a good way to learn, okay, step by step. And don't get panicked after seeing all these things. I know that if you have pretty good hands-on in LWC, these things are just a piece of cake for you. But as I said, for any beginner, right, these things can still be way confusing. Okay, so because I was not seeing the result just by having one property, and I was doing this, or maybe what, if I just remove this, I might start seeing the data. But rather than doing those hit and trials, I would rather deconstruct the response, and I will check if there's anything inside that. Then only I'm going to, then I'm receiving that into another property, and I'll just print this property in HTML, right? Rather than directly this property dot data. Okay, so here, and then let's just also do a console log, okay, to see what's inside. So console log, and then data this dot contacts. Okay, and save it. Let me, we had, okay, this was done. Let me deploy this. Okay, and then this class also. And I also want to check if I have included the component here. Okay, this component is here. I'm not sure if it was saved. I think it was saved, but anyway. Okay, let's just go ahead and refresh this. Okay. Okay, the column names are, oh yeah, we did not change the HTML, right? So you know what? I think I had not saved this, okay? I had not saved this earlier. So just to show you the previous version of what we had written, okay? I am just going to remove it for like a second. Okay, save it, redeploy it, and then I'll include that again, okay? All right, here. So we're getting the data, right? So you understood the problem, right? Because I had included the component, but I forgot to click on save, okay? Otherwise, there was nothing wrong with this, right? What we learned before, there was nothing wrong. But now we are getting the data. But again, what we had written, right, just right now, it was better way of doing it, because we are anyway going to be needing to deconstruct that response, because we will be applying some other we have to implement other functionalities as well, right? So let's just keep it like this. Now once you have deconstructed this, now your response is inside this, right, contact. So you can go to HTML, and you can here, rather than displaying this, you can display contacts. Okay, and let me deploy this again and refresh and show you if it is getting displayed or not. Okay, so here, and then refresh. All right, so it is getting displayed. Okay, so now we have all these so these, like whatever blanks you're seeing, that means this information is not available on these records. Okay, otherwise you would have seen that as well. But now let's talk about this field. Okay, account name. So you can see that account name is not getting fetched. So that simply means that this particular part, right, referencing to the next level is not working. Okay, one level up, it's not working. So if I just print the account ID, will it work or not? It will, right? Because account ID is a direct field on contact, but it is just an ID, right? So it will show you the ID and not the name of the account. Okay, so here, so look at this. These are the account IDs. But how do you actually want it to be displayed? You want it to be displayed like this, correct? So let's just go back here. And first of all, let me just exclude, or it's okay, let it be like this. Okay. Now, I want to show you this log, okay, that what actually gets printed here. Okay. So we have the console and here is the data. Okay. So I have put a limit of 15, right? That is why it is fetching 15 records. In the Apex class method, I've put a limit of 15 on the query. Now, if I open this, okay, and let's just go to one of the records, for example, this one, okay? And one more thing, okay, just observe that, hold on, let me just, that all these, contacts, right? This, everything in this array is on the same level, okay? Everything is on the same level. But the moment I open one of these records, okay, let me open this one. So see what and all information is on level 1, okay? So you can see account ID, email, first name, ID, last name, phone, title, okay? But you can see that account dot name is nowhere here, correct? Although we had fetched that, right, account dot name. So it's not there. So that's one thing. Another thing, if I close it again, right? So whatever you see on this top layer, right? ID, first name, last name, email, phone, and account ID, right? Everything is on level 1. But if you see this account, right, because it's a lookup on contact object, so it is making another hierarchy. It is creating a nested array of data. And what will that array contain? It will contain information on the, from account, whatever you have from account. Okay, so the account dot name that I was talking about, that is inside this. Okay, that is not going to be available at this layer. Okay, it is inside this nested array. Okay, so this account ID and account dot name, it is not available at the first level, first layer, where other information of contact is available. It is making another hierarchy and it is available into this nested structure. Okay, now what you can do in order, so let's just go back to the JS file. And so something, right, we have to manipulate this data in such a way that we should be able to access inside the hierarchy and pull out the information and display it, right? So for 1 second, just stop thinking technically, but try to build a pseudo logic. Okay, so let's just go back here. So just imagine, let me close it out. Okay, just imagine that if there is a way to copy the array into a new array, right? Because this is original array, right? So you cannot make any changes into the original array, and you should not be making any changes, right, to the original array. So if there is a way to copy the original array into another copy, right? As in your own object that you can create, your own array. Okay, and that in that new object that you would create, you can introduce your additional properties, as in account name, or even the way it is showing us the URL, right? Because it is not just showing us the name, it is also showing this in the form of hyperlink, right? But that is also again another property, right? URL. So coming back here. Okay, so that new object or array that you would be creating, you would be copying your original data into that new object. Okay, and once you have that new object, you can add additional property, and in that new object basically you are going to keep everything on the same level. Okay, so again, let me just summarize it. For now, all the contact details are at level 1. Okay, but account details are at level 1 level deep. Okay, now you decide to create your own object and keep everything on the same level. Okay, because it's your object. Okay, it's your object and you are like, no, I will keep everything on the same level. I don't want to create a nested structure, because it's for your own benefit, right? You want to access everything from one layer because that's how LWC allows it. Okay, now the challenge is that how you gonna do it. So the first step is to find a way to iterate over all these arrays. Okay, once you are able to iterate over this array, you can start copying the original data and start kind of transferring it into your new object that you would be creating, and you can add your additional property. Okay, again, do not get confused. When I'm writing it, I'm again going to explain you step by step. For now, just keep in mind three things: that find a way to iterate over the original data. Okay, second step, find a way to create a copy of the original data into a new object. The third step, that in the new object, when you're copying the original object, okay, then in your object you will also keep the nested information on the same level. Okay, because you're creating that object and you can structure the way you want it. Okay, so now let's just go ahead to our JS file. And all right, so before I start writing it, there's something called data flattening. Okay, in LWC. So data flattening is exactly what I explained to you. Okay, data flattening is kind of making a shallow copy of the original um, array, and then creating your own object and then adding additional properties so that you can bring every nested or hierarchical information on the same level, so that you can access the nested information in your columns, and then you can display that in your HTML file. Okay, now let me write it here. Okay, so in order to iterate over the array, we are going to use map function. Okay, sorry, I'm just writing it for you. To iterate, okay, over the original array. So this will give you the ability to iterate over the original. So if there are 15 contacts, right, then using the map function, you can iterate over each and each and every contact 1, 2, 3, 4 till 15. Okay, now when you're iterating it, you also need something that should allow you to make a copy of every every time with every iteration. Let's say when the first iteration is happening for the contact, right, then you want to do something that within that iteration, you should be able to copy the original data into some other object, right? So to make a shallow copy of the original data while you are iterating over it, you have to use spread syntax. Okay, this will allow you to make a copy. Spread syntax is basically this is it. I mean, I'll show you the syntax, like how it is written. It is like with dot 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 and then object array. Okay, and once you have this, you just need to uh, return. Okay, you just need to return your object, what you have created. Okay, so honestly, these are the only 3 steps that you have to do. Okay, now I'll just keep it like this. Let's just write everything, and then after that I'll just remove it. Okay, so first of all, where is our original data? This is my original data, right? This is my original data. And now on this original data, I am going to use, first step is to iterate over the original array, right? And for that, we are going to use the map function. Okay, so here dot map. Okay, and here I'll give a name as contact. And if you are aware of this arrow function, then okay. All right, okay. So this is the original data dot map. Now with this, right, with this syntax, it means that it has started iterating over data. Okay. So it will give you first contact, and then it's like when you write a for each loop, right? You give something as item, right? I mean, like the iteration with every iteration, you give some name to the data that you receive, right? So we are giving that name here, right? So the first contact number one, that will come, that will be under this, and then you have to, what do you have to do next? You have to use spread syntax to copy this original contact, the first contact that is coming, into your own object. Okay, so let's just first define our own object array. Okay, so I am going to take let, and then let's just give it a name as it is data flattening. Then let's just name it as flat contact. Okay, but how are you going to copy? We have to use triple dot, right? Spread syntax. So dot dot dot. And where is my original data? With the first iteration, it's here, right? So again, this is like a loop is running. Okay, you got the first contact, you made a shallow copy of the first original contact into this, right? Now inside this, now you can add your own properties. Okay, so here let me just copy this. So flat contact dot, I am defining my own property. And what and all do I need for to display that account name in the table in the form of URL? First, I need the account name, and then also I need to define a property here that will actually give me the URL. Okay, so here you can give any name here. I'm giving it as account name because this is making more sense. But how are you going to get the account name? From where? This is your copy, right? So contact dot account dot name. Okay, so this is your object, and you are fetching the data from each iteration. Okay, we are iterating over the contact, and we are extracting the account name and keeping it in this property. Similarly, I'm going to define another property for URL. Okay, let me just name it as account URL. Okay, and here, so for this, let's just first see how the generic URL gets formed for account. Okay, so I'll go back to the org and let me open accounts. Okay, hold on, or let me open accounts from here. Okay, so this is contact, this is accounts. All right, so when I open any account, you check out the URL. Okay, so this is the common structure. Let me just copy this whole thing. Okay, and then I will explain you what we are going to change here. So here, till here, it is going to be same, right? But the account ID would be dynamic, right? Because with every contact record, it will be associated with different accounts. So this is just hard coding, right? And we will remove this, and we are going to provide the dynamic. So for the dynamic value, we need to start it with dollar symbol. And then here, where do I have my account ID? Contact dot account ID, right? So contact dot account ID, and then slash view. Okay, so if like I use this account URL, anybody who will actually click on that URL of account URL in the data table, they will be navigated to the account. Okay, now after this, these are the only two properties that I wanted. Now I'm going to return what? The new object that I have created, right? So this new object, and then all right, this is ending here, this is fine. Okay, so now what will I have in this dot contacts? This is It is going to return as the flat contact. Okay, and if you want to see how the data has been formed here, let's just put a console and see. Okay, so console dot log, and then flat contact, flat contact, I'm deploying this so that we can see what value we are receiving in the new object. What happened? Missing semicolon 3990. I think. All right, we did not remove this. Sorry. Okay. So let me deploy this. And I'm going to refresh this and we will see what we are getting under flat contacts. Basically, we can now compare what we had in the original array and what we are getting into the, hold on, property reading name. Okay, all right. I know this error, okay? So this is basically, I'll tell you what's happening, okay? So here we are trying to fetch the account name, right? But in my org, the contacts that I have, every contact does not have an account associated to it, right? So there are a lot of contacts that I have in the org where account name is empty. I have not associated that contact to any account. Now, what is happening when this particular code is getting executed? This line is trying to find the account name, okay? And it is not able to find it. So it is stuck and it is throwing an error. Now, why did it get stuck here? Because we have not put a null check here, right? So if I would have put a null check here that only try to fetch the account name if account is available on the contact, right? It makes sense that if account is there on the contact, then only try to fetch the account name. Otherwise, what is the point? There's no account on the contact, correct? So that null check either you can put here or you can also put in the class. So I'm just going ahead and putting it in the class for now. So where account ID is not equals to null. Okay. So let me deploy the class and I'll go back to JS. Okay. And I'm going to deploy this component again. Although we did not make any change, but yeah. Okay, let me refresh this. All right, so we are getting this flat contact in the proxy. So we have to parse it. Okay, so here we basically need to parse this. So JSON dot parse and JSON dot stringify. Okay. Now we will be able to see what's inside. Okay. So all right, let's just go here and then hold on. Let me check what happened here. So contacts. Even this is, so let me, okay, this also needs this. At least let's just check if anything is getting printed here. All right. Let me deploy this. Not sure why this is not working. I think this also gives us proxy and this is also giving us proxy, but I'm really not sure why it's not returning anything because I had tried the same thing when I I mean, I had tried to console the same statement when I was creating the sample project, right? And it had worked. But anyway, let's just go ahead and include the label. So we'll get to know, this is definitely like, making your structure flat, but like, anyway, we'll get to know, right? Let's just change the label name based on these additional properties that we have included. And let's see if the account name instead of the ID is showing up or not. So we should get account name and it should be in the form of hyperlink. Okay. So account name. So here we have to, here in the field name. So I want the field label to be displayed as account name. And then in the field name, right, I want it to be hyperlink. So I will give account URL and I will also define the type as URL. Okay, so URL. And after that, I have to give the attributes of this URL, right? So in the type attributes, I have to define that for this URL, what value it should display. It should display account name, right? So this is only for like, that it has to be a hyperlink and the type is going to be URL. But then we also have to define the type attributes. Okay, so 1 second. After this, let's take type attributes. In type attributes, I have to give label as well as target. Okay, so let's just in label again we have to provide the field name. Okay, field name would be nothing but the property that we have created to display the name. All right, and what is that property? That property is account name. Where is it? Okay, here, account name. Okay, and after this, then okay, so here, mm, mm. So basically here in the field name, we said that, okay, it has to be a hyperlink, the type is URL, but like, what should be in the values. Okay, so the type attributes would be inside label. We have given field name should be account name. So this property should pick from this property. All right. And then this is for like, how the page is going to be navigated. All right. So let's just deploy this. And if our flat contact have worked, then it should display as the value. Okay, the expected result that we are thinking that it will. So okay. Yes, so now the values are coming, the account name is displayed and it is displayed in the form of URL. Okay, and if I click on this, it will navigate me to the account. Okay, now what happened? Okay, yeah. So once you click on the, I think this was the account that I clicked on, right? Edge Communications or, okay, I think there's something wrong. Not, maybe there's some access, something is missing, okay? So it is actually opening two tabs or what? So LinkedIn, let me close this and reopen this again. So per LinkedIn group of, it is opening, but it is opening, I think that, let me go ahead and remove this, okay? So this and deploy. All right, so I'm gonna click on this and let's see what happens. It's loading everything into a different tab, and also it's not able to load this. I did a control Z here. I've included this blank again. Okay. Hmm. Okay. So this is where the problem is, right? It is not able to form the URL properly. So lightning underscore R after account slash, okay, this dollar sign contact dot account ID. Let me check. Is it not expecting this? Hold on. I think that's the syntax. It should be there, but let's just try this because that is the place where it is disrupting the ID, right? If you see here, but it is also not able to take this ID, maybe because of the dollar sign that I provided. It's okay. Let's just try again. So here, no, it is still the same. Let's just go back here and 1 second contact.id and I'm gonna put this back and let me change this to like that inverted back commas, right? This one and then this one. Save this and deploy. I did not pay attention, but let's just see if this works. I think it was because of those inverted. Yeah. It was because of those inverted. Okay, so this is our project, right? Yeah. If I click on any of the accounts, now it is getting formed. So you need to like, so when you guys are forming the URL, right? Keep in mind that you have to provide this inverted, okay? Not this one, not like the common one, not this kind of this one, the inverted back, okay? The back in I don't know what the symbol is called, but like it's like inverted back inverted commas, okay? So as you saw, this minor thing, how much time it took, but it's fine. Um, and also there's no use of this as we are not able, but you know what, I can still tell you how this will get printed, although I'm not able to log it down because this also returns a proxy and this also returns a proxy, right? So that is why it is not able to print this. Maybe that could be the reason. But if I quickly show you this, okay, I still want to paint that picture for you, that how it will actually be forming the structure. So data and here data. Okay, so let's just deploy this. Okay, so I'll tell you where exactly in the structure those two additional properties will sit in the flat contact object. Okay, so refresh console. So here's data. Here's data, right? So, so this particular, if I would have been able to log in, right? So under this, you would have seen something like this, okay? Similar structure, but I will tell you what the difference would have been. For example, for the same contact, right? It would have been, of course, like, account would still have been there. Account, account ID, first name, ID, last name. But along with this, right, at the same level, we would have another two properties, account name and account URL, the additional properties that we have defined here, right, and keeping the values. And you would have been able to see both. You will basically, if you guys can try it out, just try to do like, console.log for flat contact. I'm gonna keep on trying it, and in the next session I'll show you if I'm able to log it. But here, right, if you're able to print it, you will see account name and account URL on the same level. Okay, because those are two additional properties, and account name will actually show you the account name, and account URL will show you the URL formed. Okay, so that's the beauty of data flattening. Although it's a problem that you cannot access the nested data, but yeah, this is how it works. So if I revise everything really quick, what and all did we do? Let me go back here. So starting with this session, right, we created a Lightning app page, okay? And then we created a tab for this Lightning app page so that we can access this particular app page from here, okay? So that was the first setup that we did. Then we created the LWC component and then we included that LWC component into this Lightning app page by doing this. You click on here, you click on edit page, and then you just need to search and drag and drop the component. But before you do that, you have to expose your LWC component in the meta.xml file and also include the targets that wherein all you want to expose your components to. Once we did that, we knew that we had to fetch the contacts. So we created an Apex class. We created a method which will return the list of contacts, okay? And we annotated that method with Aura enabled annotation so that this method would be accessible to the LWC component. Then once we had this method ready, we went to the JavaScript file of LWC. The first step that we did in JavaScript was to import this method from the Apex controller class. And after we imported this, we used wire method to wire our LWC component with this Apex controller method. Okay. And this wire call returns a response. Then we took that response and we displayed it in the like using Lightning data table in our template file. After that, again, we deconstructed the response back into, basically, we know that because response consists of two parameters, data and error. So we basically deconstructed it to pull out data and error separately. And then we put all the checks that if data exists, then only send data to the template file. But let's say if error exists, then we should be keeping it separate in another property. And then similarly, we can display the same result on HTML based on if we have received data or we have received error. So after everything was done, we had to display the account name. In account name, again, because of the hierarchical nested structure, we could have not not been able to access the account names directly in the label, or in this reference does not work here, right? Double underscore r dot name does not work in JavaScript, okay? And also in this case, account ID is a standard field on contact, right? But still account dot name did not work. So for that, we had to do data flattening, copying the original data to another object, and then in another object defining new additional properties and keeping the data whatever we wanted. We wanted account name and we wanted an additional URL property. So that is what we did. and then we return that flat account to another array contacts. Okay, and that is what we used again on the lightning data table, and that is how we have reached till here. Okay, and again there's one more thing, right? So here, if not exactly this one, right? So here you would be seeing all this email in this way, right? This is like a hyperlink and there's this icon. So here we don't see that. So I think if you just change the type, right, you should be able to see type. It just caught my eye, so let me just do this as well. Uh, yeah, right. So now we have all the data. In the next session, we will create the action column. Okay, and in the action column, we are going to define edit and delete. Once we have the action column, we will see one by one how we can implement edit, and then how we can implement delete, and then going forward, like, how we can do other related functionalities such as toast message, um, uh, and like, model pop-up, opening of model pop-up, closing of model pop-up, and then auto refresh of page and everything else. For now, I would say that if you are watching this video, honestly, just you saw, right, that for even for minor things, I had to kind of like, go back and forth and check that where, like, what did I miss. And these kind of minor mistakes, when it happens, it's seriously because you cannot, like, the debugging is although it's a skill, but it becomes very tough in JavaScript. Okay, so if you are watching this session, I would say that at least practice this much till whatever I've done. And I'm telling you, no matter how confident you are, right, just try it out. Okay, for example, even this part, just this part, just display like two columns and then try displaying the account name. Okay, so if you're practicing with me, the next session will be easier for you to follow. And I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.